Can I tell you the most ridiculous piece of advice I have ever heard?
Yes,
I
please.
was at a leadership coaches conference about a year ago, and there was a coach up on stage, and somebody asked him a really what I thought was a pretty interesting question. Felt like he should have been able to answer it without any wrinkles or anything, what's hesitation. And he paused, guffed, and gawed and said, I'm going to have to get back to you after I consult my chat GPT agent. Welcome, Third Rock listeners, to the Branding Laboratory. I'm your host, Deevo, Chief Experience Officer for the Brand Storyteller and the Fusion Creative Brands. And each week, I have the privilege of speaking with extraordinary leaders and entrepreneurs who are reshaping the way industries work. These conversations go way beyond the surface to explore the core philosophies, the lessons, and the challenges that define the brands that we admire today. And one of the greatest rewards of this podcast is the opportunity to share the insights of some of the brightest minds in business, people who are passionate about pushing boundaries and redefining what's possible. And as I always say, the stories we tell are the brands we build. And this show is a testament to the power of that concept. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Branding Laboratory. I'm your host with the most, Deevo, and I'm glad to be here today with a really cool guest. Her name is Kat Halushka. She is a business strategist and a visibility expert. Those are some fancy words for saying she helps people generate coaching, visibility on stage, off stage. She herself is a keynote speaker. She's spoken on more than 500 stages. I mean, that's a big number, okay? And she helps thousands of entrepreneurs turn their message into money, which we all like, money, money, money. And what I love about Kat, which I was just talking with her in the green room, that's the name of my cat, also spelled with a K. It's not really about just the numbers for her. She's teaching people how to use their voice as their most powerful marketing tool, which is why we brought her on the show, because that's what I do in a matter of speaking, but we do more the storytelling side. So, Kat, welcome to the Brand Laboratory. It has been a long, arduous road to get you here from Belarus, Russia, now Canada, and we're just really excited that we could finally make this happen. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm super stoked to dive into this conversation. I do find that business strategy in general and visibility is not something that's talked about enough. Hey,
I
everybody's like, there's one way, there's one strategy, you got to run ads, you got to do this, but in reality, there's just so much more to it. And this is why I
oh,
love your podcast because it is about storytelling.
thank you. I really appreciate that. So, you're sort of in the same sandbox in the sense of what I do, but you're helping people get visibility. You're a keynote speaker yourself, which it sounds like. What do you speak on? Like, what's your core zone of genius? Do you have like a fundamental Kat Halushka keynote that you deliver?
There's kind of two main topics that I speak on,
Uh-huh.
and I know it's so redundant when people have two different talks. But one is I'm really passionate about, and that's really how to grow your business using speaking in general.
Okay.
So standing on stage, virtual or in person or podcast, right? It's all stages. So really showing up and telling your story in the way that gets you clients. The second one is I'm a nerd through and through. So I love tech and I love talking about some of the tools that people can use to automate their business, just so they don't have to be stuck in it constantly, you know? Like we're all in that hamster wheel of having to do a million jobs and in just one being a business owner, but people don't realize that a business owner comes with like 25 hats.
Yeah, for sure. And the trick is to work smarter, not harder, and lose some of those hats, right? So those are two
Absolutely.
big polarities in the sense of how you're appearing. So I can see how you could make that comment. Do people ever get buyer confusion on, are you a keynote on telling stories to get clients, or are you a tech genius that's telling us how to make money using tech? Do they ever get
I
confused or?
Generally, what happens is one becomes like almost a subtopic of the other. People just magnetized to me talking about tech in general because what they see is I could be that first person in their life who is able to explain something super technical in the terms that they actually understand. And so what happens a lot of the times is we start from speaking and how to get clients from speaking because it's the most non-techy way to get clients.
Mhm.
You don't need funnels, you don't need websites, you don't need to be running social media, you don't need to have even a laptop, right? You can literally just jump on stage and tell your story. And as long as you understand the strategy behind it and the structure, you can do it relatively well and people will resonate with it and they're going to want to work with you. There's a lot more to it, obviously, as you know. And that's a good start. That's a good start for every business owner to do. Tech comes later.
Mm.
And so I think naturally, when I get invited to speak, a lot of the times I get invited to speak about visibility and speaking and how to use public speaking to get clients. And later on, they want me to come back. Because once people start getting clients, now they're talking about onboarding and CRMs and how do you keep track and how do you collect money? How do you process it all? How do you keep track of everything and understand your numbers in general? Because business and numbers are hand in hand. And often, what I hear people say is they come in and they go, I love what I do, but I'm not a business person. I just don't get this business thing. And most of the time, all it is numbers and technology. They just don't care and don't want to have to do numbers and technology.
You're more of a systems operations sort of streamline, make
Yeah,
things more efficiency, like operational efficiency, almost like a, yeah, that's the best way to say it. Is that correct?
you bet.
And then you use your platform as speaking to sort of talk about your zone of genius, and that's how you're getting paid to do that. And then you're also
Yes.
helping other people as a secondary. So yeah, there's really three pieces to you. And now you're also helping other leaders, founders, entrepreneurs like myself get on stage and sort of show how they can express their zone of genius.
Correct. And
Got
and
it.
I just want to highlight so the main differentiator in what I teach to people and some of the other speaker trainers and coaches out there
Hmm.
is they want you to get paid to speak. So they want you specifically to get a contract with a conference for whatever it is, 2,000, 5,000, $10,000,
Hmm.
and you deliver a talk as a service to that conference and get paid for it. I'm all on the side of you already have an offer in your business and you're struggling with getting consistent clients from it. You could be doing social media or you could be going to networking events or you tried ads of some sort in the past and you just find that it's inconsistent or it's too expensive,
Hmm.
right? Referrals are great. I'm just like anybody else. I love referrals. And I can't live on referrals because I can't control inflow of referrals. I can't say that next month I want to increase my revenue by 10% and therefore I need 10% more referrals and all of a sudden get them, right?
Yeah.
Without having to do active work. With speaking, it's different. So what I teach clients is specifically how you can deliver types of talks and get clients that way, aka selling from stage in the different ways that will generate clients. So you don't get paid to be on the stage, you get paid from getting clients from that room.
That's interesting model. So we're are we building the stage ourselves? Is that what I'm understanding? We're
It
setting
could be
up the.
both. So often what happens is with our clients is they will build their own stage of some sort just to
Hmm.
gain traction.
Hmm.
As a little bit of story about my own journey is when I started growing my business, and my first business was web design. Like I said, nerd through and through. I like online marketing, web design, funnels, all of that stuff. And so I started going out to networking events and quickly realized there's only so much growth I can hit there. And what would happen is I go to networking events, I book my coffee dates, my calendar is packed. I go to the coffee dates and some of them converts into clients. Not like huge amounts, but some of them do convert into clients.
Hmm.
But then I get clients and I'm too busy to go to networking events and on
Hmm.
coffee dates. And so my revenue started dropping. And I was stuck in the cycle of always making the same amount of money because it would take the same amount of networking events and coffee dates and the same amount of clients. I couldn't break out of that hamster wheel of just finally making more money and having to work less. And I realized that the easiest way for me would be just being the person in front of the room instead of being one of the people networking.
Yeah.
Now, the truth behind that is you can imagine you can hear my accent a little bit now. Back then, a lot more accent and a lot less English. And so me approaching different stages and event organizers, I heard no a lot.
Mm.
And a lot of them came with, who are you? Why should I have you on my stage? And I'm not frankly sure I can even understand you. So I'm not going to put you on my stage. And so I started doing this strategy. Back then, I didn't know it's a strategy, right? I started doing this strategy of hosting my own events as the necessity because nobody would put me on the stage.
Mm.
They frankly would just say no.
Hmm.
And very quickly, the scale tilted because my events grew from two people to 20 to 80 and to 300.
Wow.
And once it hit 300, people started coming to me, the ones that were saying no, being like, hey, can you put me on your stage?
And so you're now teaching your clients in your zone of genius to sort of replicate the model that you already built that made you a
You
pioneer.
betcha.
Got it. Okay. I need to talk to you about that because I've actually have a strategy around that that I have started to unroll myself. I use my podcast as one of the vessels that you've sort of just described, not as a sales tool per se, but to build these relationships with people that I would have never had the chance to meet. And they don't often end up in business per se, but what they do end up in is sort of a larger ripple effect of just making connections and
Yeah.
then being able to sort of compound on that in a variety of different ways. And that's why I podcast, aside from the fact that I just love having really cool conversations with people. I love to learn. It's amazing to me. I'm always just fascinated and blown away by how many talented people there are on this planet. The human spirit of innovation and creativity and just being able to create something out of nothing and then deliver it back to someone else and then get paid to do it. I'm just like, it's fucking
Yeah.
amazing. I just love it. So that's one of the primary reasons I got into entrepreneurialism many, many years ago. I was a corporate slave for a long time. Loved my time there in the sense of how much I learned. But I remember seeing other entrepreneurs sort of like having this creativity and just being able to like do all these different things with a solution that they had manufactured and created. And I just remember thinking, that's the coolest thing ever. Like I want to do something like that. So fantastic. So what's the story between what you were doing and sort of today, like discovering your voice as a business tool? Was you said it was sort of by accident? What was that epiphany where you realized, wow, was it just the momentum, or was there something else that you sort of saw organically that helped you kind of realize this was the trajectory you wanted to go on?
Well, a big part of it is being in front of more people, of course, made me better business owner, better speaker, better storyteller, and generated some revenue in my business. And I still didn't feel like I could control the outcome. As you probably know, you sit down and look at your profit and loss sheet, you're looking at your revenue in your business. You should be able to pretty accurately predict what's happening next month or the month after that or over the year. When it comes to revenue numbers, clients, right? And how much team you need, how many resources you need, how much of your time you're going to invest into it. I still didn't feel like I had quite that
Mm,
because I still heavily relied on exposure and conversations. And so the clients would come to me. So I still didn't have the lever of I want more clients, I want less clients, I want more clients, I want less clients. I didn't have the control over it. And it's not until I attended somebody else's event that was teaching business that I realized that there is such thing as
mm,
selling from stage, where you can actually make an offer right there, right then, in the short period of time, and convert people in the audience into clients. And
mm,
for me, it was a huge aha moment because that room was unlike anything that I've ever seen in back then in my history. I walked in and the speaker was an immigrant, just like me, had huge accent, just like I did back then. And the only difference is I was sitting in the room and watching him deliver a talk. At the end, he makes an offer. And I watched the person next to me stand up and go hand in the form, and another person at my table. And I looked over and there was three more people. Me being a very logistical person, I sit down and in my mind, I'm just calculating, right? I'm just like, okay, so how much money did he just make? And I think it was like a $5,000 coaching program or something like that. So it's not quite what I was offering back then, but similar.
mm.
This guy made more in 60-minute talk than I made the whole year in my business and back then at my job
Yeah.
combined. And so the light bulb went off that there is an actual tool that I can use in order to convert an audience that I've built into clients consistently in a controlled way that I can actually turn on and off whenever I want to.
Is your pricing model or the model that you're selling to clients to help them with their notoriety and visibility and ultimately revenue, is it on a retainer or is it sort of a per project? Like, how does that work? And how long does a typical client work with you to sort of before they're up and running full speed on their own?
Yeah, we have different tiers. So I'm sure some of the people who are listening will be familiar with the concept of value ladder, right? In the
Hmm.
value ladder, all you have is it means that your business has a suite of products going
Hmm.
from a lower tier and lower price to the higher tier and higher price. So depending on where the person is at, if they're just starting out and perhaps they don't have enough budget, right, to just go right into one-to-one and someone helping you. Not everybody starts with a 50K budget to start their business. Although
Hmm.
if you're brick and mortar, you kind of figure it out because
Hmm.
opening in the door is insane investment, right? So some people are okay doing the do it yourself. So we have some courses that we offer specifically on speaking, building audiences, right? And then we have our core program called Impact Maker. So that one is throughout 6 months. We actually help you build out the whole strategy and system in your business.
Hmm.
So this is a part community and then part actual development of the system in their business.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. And you keep saying plural we, so there's more than just
Oh,
one
you
cat. There's
bet.
got it. So you have a whole team supporting you on this.
Yes. So first of all, I have a business partner who's incredible. Her name is Kim Carson Richards. We have partnered out of, actually, you'll love this, Deevo, out of storytelling. We literally met at an event, decided to just have a fire in one of our houses and hang out and roast marshmallows and just, tell where we're coming from and who we are and get to know each other a little bit deeper. And just right around that fire was marshmallows, was her kid and her husband and a couple more people. We just so aligned with our values and what was important to us and what we wanted to create for our life, but then also in the world that we started a business right there. We
There,
literally went and registered it within 2 weeks.
there are two things you said right there that just really jumped out at me. The first one is fire. And every time I am a huge fire aficionado, and I have a big fireplace in my home. And there's not a day that, well, there's a day, summertime, I won't be lighting fires, but I have fire going most of the year in my house. And there's something cathartic about just sort of sitting, and there's something medical and like sort of human about this idea. But the idea of storytelling itself, I always had this picture of how humans originally connected was around this idea of a fire, different indigenous tribes crossing paths accidentally or maybe on a hunt or whatever, and then sharing the meal around a fire and swapping stories and changing stories. And sort of like that's how sort of the evolution of humanity began in my mind. But anyway, so it's fantastic. But the other piece I want to touch on, you just said something that really jumped out at me, is that you and your partner sitting around this fire, sharing and swapping stories, and how you were in a values alignment, which is really a fantastic piece. It's one of the core parts of some of my programs is I don't think a lot of people have ever done any values work to truly,
Oh man.
really understand what they believe in. And this is my journey, and I won't go too far in it because this is about you, but I was just writing a whole story on this for a magazine I'm being featured in on how I got into branding. And it really centered around this idea of photography first, but I realized I was a storyteller. And then when I was starting to tell people stories just with not just my camera, I started to realize that I didn't actually know my own story very well. Like I knew like, you know the nuts and bolts of it, but you never really go deep down the rabbit hole to unpack things, right? And it wasn't until I started doing that work on myself, sort of this inner engineering and unpacking all the subtleties and nuances of my life, that I realized I didn't really know what I stood for in my life. I was just sort of on a treadmill. Went to college, graduated, jumped into the workforce, worked 15 years, yada yada yada. But so now fast forward to where I'm today, and I every new client I start a retainer with, we first go through a very very deep values process so that we can really understand how they show up in the world. What do they believe? What are the things what's their line in the sand? So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm assuming by the fact that you said that you've kind of gone through this yourself. How important are values in literally everything you do?
If you don't have clarity on your values, you don't have a business.
Mm,
It's just as simple as that. I always look at it as the one thing that drives me when I don't have a drive, or I'm down, or I'm sick, or I'm out, or whatever it is, right? Is my values.
hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not optional for me to have something different. I'll give you a very specific example. I think the audience will really appreciate that. One of the core values that Kim and I share is the flexibility and freedom.
Mm,
So for us, and freedom in all senses, time, money, right? Like all location, all of those things. I would never go build in a business that locks me in the office, doesn't make me enough money, and keeps me on schedule. That's just
mm,
against that one core value. It's against all of that. And so knowing that, me having a business, I actually just posted on my Instagram this morning is I went for a coffee with a friend this morning just 'cause.
mm.
just because I wanted to, where normal people, I mean, the typical job, right, would keep you in going to a job place in the hours. And I just went and decided I want to have a coffee with a friend this morning.
I love that.
And me having a business and building it in the way that I want to, aligned with the values that I have, allows for me to do that and not feel stressed, confused,
Yeah.
stressing my team, or having any kind of strain at all. I can just go do it and then come back and still be in business and still making money.
I have this really cool necklace that I had custom made for me, and on it is the North Star, and behind
Mm.
it are my values. And I always sort of equated values with having a roadmap to your North Star and sort of like a reminder of these are the things that I believe in. So when it comes down to decision making or analysis or paralysis analysis, for, or if you will, what are my values and what do I believe in and how do these stack up and align with them? So it's really important. I had a really funny, interesting story I'll share with you. Thank you for sharing your story. I work out in the gym every morning, and after the gym, I usually go to the dry sauna. And this morning, I've turned my dry sauna into this philosopher's stone where all the guys that are in there, we have these sort of really cool conversations now, not like stupid bullshit anymore. It's not like football and hockey, and it's just like we have real conversations about real things. Because I'm like, I'm not going to tolerate the hockey conversation. Let's talk about some real shit. Anyway, there's this dude in there, and this is one of my favorite things. It's so funny. I hate, I literally hate when people say to me, if you ask them how they're doing, oh, not bad for a Monday, or only 2 more days until Friday. And I asked him this morning, I said, how's it going, man? He's like, oh, man, I'm just really excited. There's only one more day till Friday. And I'm not being mean. I'm not making fun of the guy. He's a really cool dude. But I was like, and he said something to the effect of, you know what I mean, don't you? And I was like, no, I actually don't know what you mean. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't really see the world that way. I'm not saying that everything is always like rainbows and Tootsie Pops, but I sort of view the world as like every single day of the week is a different opportunity for something because I'm always doing something different. Like I love my life. I love what I do for my work. I love all the things that I'm doing. I don't really think about Friday. And so I shared this with him, and he's just like, you could see his inner wheels just like smoking and churning. And I was like, when was the last time you asked yourself if what you're doing right now makes you happy? And he's like, no one's ever asked me that question before. And I was like, well, we'll really think about it for a second. What would light you up if you didn't have any obstacles or any inhibitions that would light you up? How can you do something to serve a population and make some money at it and fill yourself up? And he's like, I have no idea. And I was like, bro, you should really think about this question and this comes down to your values. Like, what do you believe in? What do you want out of this life? So anyhow, I appreciate you sharing that. You help, I'm gonna switch gears. You've helped a lot of entrepreneurs, and I saw a number, was it, I don't know, it was in your press kit or your website, $7 million in sales results from based upon the work you're doing with people. That's a big number. First of all, how do you tabulate that? Like, who's giving you their P&L so that you understand what they're making off of you? I was like, well, that's a whole different conversation. But you can answer that first piece, but I'm curious when you're working with these clients and these entrepreneurs and these founders, what is sort of their biggest inner block that's stopping most of them from showing up from your point of view?
So let's address the first one. So the number is outdated, but the number is not just my clients. This is just me making it from stage. So this is how much I've sold from stage. I'll need to
You
get a more
personally.
updated number. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I was given bad information. I was told that you had accumulated with all of your clients that they had generated $7 million in sales. And I was like,
Way more than that.
how the hell does she
I
know that
have one client that
information?
generated more than that in the year.
I was like, how the hell does she know that information? Anyway, so okay, thanks for clearing that. So you personally have generated $7
Yeah.
million dollars. Wow, that's brilliant. Well
Just
played.
from stages. So
That's
just
brilliant.
from speaking from stage and selling directly.
Wow, that's amazing.
But let's talk about the entrepreneurs. When I do have those conversations with entrepreneurs, I think there's one core skill set that most of them forget to work on,
Hmm.
and that's themselves.
Oh my God, thank you. Yes.
If you cannot work on yourself to becoming the best version of yourself so that you can serve, if you cannot overcome your own BS, belief systems, right? So that you can be the best version of yourself so you can serve.
Hmm.
If you cannot really embrace the habits that will support you in your life to be the best version of yourself
Mm,
so you can serve,
mm.
what are you doing in business?
I agree. They're directly correlated.
There's always gonna be something that comes up that will stop you, halt you, that will make you step back, that will make you say no. There's always gonna be some kind of BS coming up. So like
Always.
really start from working on yourself and
Hmm.
everything else is going to follow. There's always gonna be fears to overcome. I have never met a person without fears.
I love it. You're going to love this. I submitted for my first TED Talk finally that I've been gearing up for a while to do. It's called Becoming You. That's my program. And it really centers around the work on you, the intersection between personal development and professional alignment, and sort of how important it is. And I was describing it earlier, how important it is that you go down this rabbit hole and start to unpack all of your experiences, all of your learned behaviors, all of your context, all of your trauma, all of your shadow work, what's happened when you were a kid, all of those things accumulate over time. And these are things that I've never learned in my entire life until the last 10 years. All of those things accumulate, and then they start to shape the narrative of how you show up in the world, how you view the world, how you treat people, all those things. So, man, well played. You're my Russian doppelganger. Thank you for saying that. So, as part of your process, I have a rubric that I take my clients through. I'm assuming you have something similar. How do you unpack that so that people can first understand their story and then second be able to tell their story?
So there's a kind of process that I have in my own business, but I also want to emphasize the power of the community
Mm,
and the power of partnerships.
mm,
Because when it comes to the personal development side of the human beings, right, and clients that I work with, I don't do that. I
mm,
outsource that, aka I have a company that I work with that I recommend. So the clients who are ready and they want to take that step, we just connect them directly and they make those decisions there. But that gives them the container to work on themselves, so that they can actually become a business owner that can
mm,
create the success that they desire. Now, in our own business, when it comes to storytelling and developing the specific pieces for their talk, we have very specific systems. We actually have a protocol called Profitable Signature Talk System that breaks down every step and every slide of what needs to be said in the talk in order for
mm.
it to work, including all the buying triggers, how to overcome limiting beliefs, how to actually make an offer. Because, man, you'd be surprised how many people their offer is, and I do this.
Yeah.
Talk to me if you want it.
Yeah.
Crazy. People have no idea what you do, even if you tell them what you do.
Hmm.
We hear all the time. We have a signature 2-day workshop where we take people through it. And people at the workshop tell us all the time. They hear our offer and they go, man, this is the first time I actually understand what someone is offering.
That's amazing.
Crazy. Clarity. Confused
Clarity.
mind never makes a decision. You need to provide people clarity.
Well, that's the beauty of your work is that you can't have clarity for the clients that you want to attract if you don't have clarity on yourself first. So
Yeah.
that's sort of the work the inner engineering has to come first, right? I've been spending really the last 2 or 3 years working on this very thing with my coach, and one of the things that he has taught me is sort of like reverse engineering that thing you were just talking about, that model, that product, whatever it is you're selling, is speaking to it from the point of what's the problem your ideal client is suffering from, and then how do you speak that language so that when they hear that, there's no lost translation in what they're hearing with what you're saying, right? Do you agree with that approach?
Yeah, and even go a little bit deeper. So understanding how the mindset works, right?
Hmm.
So everybody comes into the room, again, whether it's virtual or in person. Webinar is also a talk, right? Or podcast also a talk. And so everybody comes into the room listening to you or whoever the speaker is with their own set of limiting beliefs or beliefs in general, right?
Hmm.
And beliefs are formed from experiences that you had earlier in your life at some point, and the story you created about those experiences.
Yeah.
And so understanding all three are crucial in order for you to be able to sell anything. So as you're putting together a talk, podcast, story, right? As you're just having conversations with people, if the goal is to support them in taking the next step, whether it's buying something or just next step in their life, it's crucial to understand what do they believe in now, what happened to them, and what story they created about what happened to them. Just knowing those three things will allow for you to have such a high quality of conversations that there's no other choice for the person on the other side to feel heard and understood. And isn't that the core desire of every human being?
100%. I'm curious, and I have my own way of understanding this, but I'd like you to hear what you say. How does how do we as entrepreneurs, we're trying to sell something or tell our story so that other people will work with us, collaborate with us. How do we know what our audience's story is? How do we know what their beliefs are? How do we know what their values are? What's the work there?
You don't know until you ask. Therefore, the core and foundation of marketing and business in general, as you're building it, is doing market research.
Hmm. So how much goes into identifying your ideal customer is market research versus sort of your own self-prognosis of things?
So you would start from yourself so you understand who you actually want to work with, right? Because doing market research with general population is not going to be helpful. You still need to kind of hone in on who is it that you want to work with and who is it you want to do the market research
Hmm.
with. So understanding that is crucial. So this is part personal development, part you really need to dive in on what your business should look like and what your
Hmm.
values are. And some people just hire a coach to help them just because it's a little bit easier and faster, right? Sometimes you bounce in your head. If you're like me, there's a lot in your head. I also have ADHD, so it just kind of everything and everywhere and 50 ideas at once, right? So sometimes you need a little support there. But once you know that, the market research becomes easy because you only do market research with people that you would want to work with. And therefore, the stories that you get, the answers that you get, the limiting beliefs that you hear, right? All of those things are very aligned with that specific group of people. Therefore, the number one mistake that I see business owners make is create a product before they
Hmm.
do the market research. So they
So there's
create
a
something for themselves, not for their audience.
so there's a formula that I sort of hear you describing. How would you describe that formula if you had to break that down formulaically?
It's just the first couple of steps of the actual formula, but that would be first identify the market you want to work with.
Hmm.
Number two, you do the market research. Number three, from the data that you collect, you're going to put together an offer that's going to support them with getting the results that they want, they said that they wanted.
What if somebody is industry agnostic and they don't necessarily they're not necessarily pigeonholed by a specific market, but a very specific type of individual?
Give me an example.
Well, I consider myself industry agnostic, which is why I'm asking this question. So I don't necessarily work with anybody in any specific industry. I work with people that have reached a pivot point in their current trajectory. And that pivot point can be new career, wanting a personal brand, not really satisfied with what they're doing, what they've been doing for the last 15 years, even though they were quite successful at it. And I've seen this. I work with coaches, I work with chiropractors, I've worked with doctors, I've worked with dentists, I've worked with athletes, I've worked with ex-Olympians. And one of the common things that I see in my space, and I kind of went about this a little bit differently than you did. I first I first identified what lit me up, what really made me feel really full inside in the work that I was doing. And then once I figured that out, then I started going after and looking at what were the problems that I had solved for myself and what types of similar problems do I see other founders, other leaders also suffering from in that same vein? Because I'd already done the work myself to figure out my solutions and I saw that they were working. They were actually being really effective and very lucrative for me. So then I said, okay, if I suffered from this, there's got to be other people that are suffering from the exact same thing because I've made multiple pivots in my career. And there was always coaches that helped me, therapists that helped me sort of work through that magic, right? And so I was like, okay, I've done the work on myself. I've seen what the recipe looks like. Now I'm going to start targeting people that fall sort of similar to me in that vein, right? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
does that explain what I'm saying?
And what you're talking about, what we're both talking about is really niching down. And it's important to understand that niching down can happen in two ways. The most common one that everybody talks about and hears about and understands is niching down by the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So who am I talking to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very common one, and people struggle with that one the most.
Mm-hmm.
This is where people struggle niching down enough because they just want to help people. The second one is the one that I support a lot of my clients with, and that's niching down by the problem that you're solving.
Mm.
See the difference? The
Yeah, and
people could be different, but the problem is the same.
I do see the difference, and I'd love your opinion on this. So I've reframed that in my own lexicon as becoming the niche rather than reframing it for everyone else. I found a problem that I was really passionate about solving for other people. And so I used my superpowers and my strengths and assets to step into that and create sort of my own niche, if you will. I became the niche that I wanted to
Yeah,
sell. Okay, I think we're saying
exactly.
the same thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I'm
so when you look at the audiences, right, it's like when you do market research, you can do market research by the group of people, but you can also do
hmm
it by just identifying the problem,
hmm
right? Like I said, the step one is going to be to really understand yourself first,
Yeah,
right? Because you can't really niche down and figure out who you want to help or how you want to help them if you don't know yourself at all.
definitely.
So that's always going to be step one.
In terms of you as an individual and a human and a business owner and all the things that you are that makes up the composite of who Kat Halushka is, what would you say has sort of been some of the biggest struggles you've had throughout your life in a professional capacity, sort of building this business or going about whether it's relocating? What have been some of the biggest struggles you faced?
I mean, mine are probably very typical to an immigrant moving to a new country, no language, don't know anybody,
Wait, let me
everything is
stop you
new.
there. Did you know any English before you came here, or before
Maybe
you moved to
100
Canada?
words, 100 to 200
And
words
you've been here. How long have you been in North America, Canada?
since 2005, 20 years now.
So,
Wow.
so how long did it take you to pick up that language before you kind of felt comfortable speaking English?
I'd say about 8 years, and I'll tell you why. So most of the people stay in the new country and they stick to their cultural groups. And so for them, it takes much, much longer to learn English, but also you will notice I don't have a very typical heavy Russian accent.
No, you actually sound like somebody. I've met several people from Iceland. You sound like someone from Iceland.
Oh, usually I hear French. I'll take Iceland
Well,
all day
I would
long.
imagine, I was thinking, it was my next question is do you have a French influence? Because I know Canada is largely French, but that's more of like the Quebec side of things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, you sound very Icelandic to me. When I first heard your accent, I was like, I wonder if she's from Iceland. Anyway,
Yeah.
carry on.
And so for me, the core thing that I did differently because I knew that I immigrated here, there's no way back. I needed to move forward.
Mm.
So I decided I'm going to cut off myself from my cultural group. And I embraced fully being in a new country with a new culture, new language. And the only time I spoke Russian was at home with my parents.
What? So sorry, you were in Russia, you were in Belarus, and now Canada. So you speak Russian. I don't know what does Belarusian speak? Russian or
It's
Belarusian?
Belarusian, but they primarily Russian, but they do have Belarusian language.
Got it. And is there any other language? Obviously English, but anything else that you speak?
No, not yet.
No. Is this something you're learning right now?
I'm working on Spanish, but I just started
Oh, okay,
recently.
cool.
Mhm.
I speak a little bit of Spanish. I grew up, I'm from originally from California, so I grew up on the west coast of America, which there's a large Hispanic population. So, yeah. Anyhow, I'm curious because I've been on stages before and I've been part of large groups where there's lots of speakers, and I actually have a really cool one coming up in December. I'm in New York City doing a really cool presentation. One of the things I've noticed is that, and this is going to sound a little bit rude, but I've noticed that the person that goes up on stage isn't always the same person that I meet behind stage. And I'm curious what your
Mm.
perspective of being a keynote speaker, being in front of a camera, being in front of an audience, what's that fine line between showing up as yourself and being performative? Because I see there's a big difference in a lot of people that I meet that are doing this business. It's sort of like they view it as a performance rather than this is who they genuinely are. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm genuinely asking, like, is there a distinction that has to be made when you get up on stage? Because by and large, how you see me on this podcast is how you'd see me in a bar having whiskey with you or out playing a game of softball. Like I'm
Mm.
generally the same person. I'm just kind of like, ooh, squirrel. How deep I like to have meaningful conversations, that sort of stuff. I don't really change that when I'm talking on stage. And I'm just curious, is that wrong? Is that right? And sort of what's your opinion around that?
And so again, it comes to the core values. So for me, one of my core values is authenticity. So
Mm-hmm.
showing up as I am, being myself and embracing who I am
Mm,
as much as I can at all times. And so when I was building this business, that was a big part of how I wanted to build it.
mm,
And a big part of what I teach to my clients is they take what I teach them as a strategy, but they apply it to themselves as a human.
mm.
Therefore, they have to apply their own core values as a layer on top of the strategy.
I love that.
So I'll give you a good example. You can be a public speaker to grow your business. You can be a public speaker to inspire, and you can be a public speaker as a service. So often when you see public speaking as a service, so those keynotes where you get paid to speak on the stages and that's your sole business, is that's what you do, that's performance. You're
Mm,
paying for a performance. So a lot of the times those people perform for you on the stage so that you are either entertained or inspired or whatever that is, right?
Got it.
So it's expected that they have a very polished way that they do every single talk, and they deliver it in a specific way that might look a little bit different behind the scenes, right? So that might have been what you're seeing as we grow as professionals, right? Just like at a job, there's certain things you wouldn't do at a job that you would do outside of a job, right? That's also performance because you get performance reviews. So that's very much the same. If that's your business, that's great. Like that's you're doing it really well, and that's as professional. When I meet people who do that as their business, I admire that they're able to do that.
Hmm.
They're able to turn it on and off whenever they want to. It's great. It's a great skill. I don't have that. I don't have any acting background, performance background. I just am who you see right now, and that's who I am, and that's what you would see. Maybe
Uh,
a little more inappropriate jokes sprinkled in between.
Fair enough. I actually spent a lot of time in doing theater in high school and college, so I do have a background in that. So I'm wondering how performant I actually am. Interesting conversation. Thank you again. I appreciate you joining me. We're speaking to Kat Halushka. I want to talk a little bit about leadership and legacy with you for a minute because it's one of my favorite conversations to talk about with other entrepreneurs, leaders, founders. First of all, what is your view of leadership? If you had to define it, what does that sound like, taste like, smell like? What is leadership to you?
It's hard to define in just one word or one sentence, but I see it as showing up to my best abilities so that people can see what's possible and bringing people with me.
Mm,
I don't want to be at the top alone. I'm not that person. I don't see it like that. I see it as how can I support as many people as possible in their journeys so we can all end up there together.
hmm.
Whatever that is, because for each one of us, the goals are different. I just
Yeah.
want people to be genuinely happy and living the lifestyle that they choose, that they
A,
want.
a lot of people say that, and I'm not calling you out to say you are or you aren't, but a lot of people say that, but there's not a lot of evidence for that. So I'm curious, what are you doing to imbue that form of leadership with you? How are you bringing other people with you?
A big part is just sharing the realness behind what it is that I do and the realness behind some of the journey of becoming an entrepreneur. And as an example, I share quite often a story about me going on the stage and literally it was the stage for me. I knew when I'm coming on, my flight was a little bit late. I'm still on time. Everything is great. I get to the hotel, I open my suitcase and I forgot to pack any pants. Or like I share how I forgot to turn off my mic when I went to the bathroom. Like
Wow.
I share all the real things that actually happen behind the scenes. I don't want people to think that just because they see me on the podcast and I seem polished, that's not true. I just am.
Yeah.
And that's the core difference is you don't have to be anybody. You just got to be yourself and allow
Hmm.
for yourself to come out. And that's the whole brilliance of the system itself, right?
Yeah. I agree
Is
with
as
you.
long as you develop you, you're comfortable within your body and your spirit, and you can just be on stage and be yourself and not feel like you have to perform
Definitely.
for anybody. So for me, sharing some of those pieces, that's how I show up is just being very open, showing people what that looks like, showing some of the fuck ups that happen in my business and in my career when it comes to speaking. And then on the other side, also showing what's possible. And I'm very real about that too, where I hear a lot of the times, people share their best results that they get. And in fact, with every single client, and they can confirm it when we start the conversation about working together, I talk about how if you ever meet a coach or a marketer who comes to you and say, this is the one way that's going to help you grow your business to 100,000, $1 million, they're lying.
Mm.
They're just lying. It's bullshit. Nobody can tell you how it's actually going to happen. It's going to take you a few tries, a few hits on the head, it's going to take you a few different strategies until you find the one that's aligned with who you are. Not everybody wants to be a speaker or a keynote speaker. That's fine.
That's interesting that you say that because my analogy on leadership is very similar to that. I was asked on a podcast last week. She read something on something I'd post on Instagram or LinkedIn about meeting people where they are, and she wanted to know what that meant to me. And what you just said is very similar because no matter what you're delivering, you can have a program, you can have a process, But no matter what you're delivering within that program or process, the person that you're working with is going to have their own interpretation and receipt of that information based upon their own understanding, skills, abilities, etc. And so to say that one size fits all is completely unfair to me when I hear that. So I fully agree with you. Back to my question, I said, well, it's interesting. I have two daughters. They're two teenagers, and they're both markedly different, like night and day. And how I've had to raise them is markedly different from how I've raised the other, right? One of them is so anyhow, so my point in saying that is like there is no, there you can have programs, you can have blueprints, and I'm curious what your feedback on this is. But at the end of the day, you still have to connect with the individual you're working with, and you're going to have to make some modifications and some tweaks so that they better understand how to accept that and then implement it into their own life. Right? You agree or disagree?
100%. Yep.
Interesting. When people interact with you, what's the sort of feeling, the vibe, the energy you want them to walk away with?
Knowing what's possible.
The potential.
Yeah.
Would you say
I,
that's your superpower?
yes, people tell me all the time that I have an ability to see in them something that they don't even see
Yeah.
themselves yet.
You are my Russian, Belarusian, Canadian doppelganger on so many levels. It's fantastic how people connect.
I'm
I'm,
so glad that after 15 tries, we actually connected.
I'm curious, just let's go a bit existential for a minute. I'm I'm consistently blown away by how many people I'm introduced to, I intersect with, I randomly meet that are so well aligned with the things that I'm now doing with my life. And that's not to say everybody's going to be a client or whatnot, but on a regular basis now, from my podcast guests to the clients I meet with to people I physically meet at networking events or whatever, it's like there's a magnet attracting people to what I'm actively looking for right now. And my only attribution that I can suggest that's leaning towards this is the work I've done on me has given me clarity, confidence, and security on who I am. And so conversely, there's some sort of energetic vector pulling those people into me. I know that's a bit existential and woo-woo. I do fully believe in it. I'm just curious, does your realm of genius kind of extend into that side of things as well a little bit and sort of like the more spiritual side of humanity?
I'm definitely a spiritual in a sense of I believe in a lot of things, and I've done quite a bit of things myself. And again, I leave it up to the experts to actually work my clients through it. That said, I bring in a lot of the mindset work in what I do,
Yeah.
and I'm highlighting the importance of actually just developing yourself as a human at all times. That work doesn't stop.
Mm.
And like you mentioned, you all of a sudden attracting all those people who are aligned with who you are and what are you discovering. I also see kind of like a magnet, like when you look at the polarity and it's almost like a vortex. One
Mm-hmm.
side will be magnetic and one repelling.
Mm.
I experience that all the time. And it's not just people, it's everything in my life.
Mm. I
But
love
it all
that.
starts from right here, right? From me, from my head, from my heart, and what's in there. So if I put trash in it, and I'm thinking all the negative thoughts, right? And if I'm watching a lot of trash TV, if I'm constantly being fed, right, all of the bad stories or something negative, I clearly see how all of a sudden my whole surrounding shifts.
Hmm.
Everything from results to clients to friends, right? To even just being on the street and how people are looking at me. And then
Absolutely.
I clearly see how when I am focusing more, developing myself and doing my habits, right, and making sure that I'm doing the acts of self-love, importance, I'm actually valuing myself as a human and I make myself a priority, it shifts.
Yeah.
Even seeing how I'll be in the grocery store and little kids just look and smile at me. How
Yeah.
weird. But they do, because kids, they don't have as developed sense of, the shields just yet. And so
Correct.
they can see your light without even having to try and know what it is. And
Yeah.
so when they look at you, they feel magnetized by who you are. And so often kids will actually just look at you and smile because they can see your good energy, right? And then same way, if you see kids who are just like backing up, something needs to be cleared. The dark
Beware.
cloud is somewhere around.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that piece. So yeah, I think we feel the same way about that. I'm just curious, where if people hear the show and like, wow, this is somebody I really want to connect with, what's the best way for them to find you?
Find me on Instagram. It's Kat Halushka, Kathalushka.
Are we connected on Instagram yet? I don't know if I
Yes, we
we
are.
okay, cool. Sorry, I haven't I don't follow that much stuff on Instagram. I post, but I don't really follow too much. So forgive me for asking that question. I'm going to go out and do some stuff and research on you now. I want to take you through a hot seat for a few minutes, if that's okay, before we wrap up the
Let's do
show.
it.
So, are you familiar with my hot seat?
No,
So it's a rapid fire questions, quick answers, etc. You don't get time to think about them, just quick answers, first thing that pops into your head.
let's
What
do it.
what is your morning non-negotiable?
Reading
If you had to order a coffee drink, what would it say about you?
that I'm bougie.
When was the last time you did absolutely nothing?
Yesterday,
What's a smell that brings you back to something really fond from the old days?
fall, like
Fall
smell of leaves.
that's interesting. Fall has a smell, doesn't it? Huh. Yeah, it does have a smell. I had to think about that for a second.
Mhm.
What is one habit you still have that you haven't been able to break that trips you up from time to time?
Working out.
Hmm. What's the biggest ego check you've had to do?
Oh, that's a good one. That I'm more important than someone else.
Hmm. If your entire ecosystem, your business, everything you've built right now disappeared tomorrow, what part of you would still feel whole?
Myself.
Hmm. That's interesting. What is a lie that you used to tell yourself that you no longer believe?
That I don't matter.
Hmm. What is the bravest decision that you've ever made that nobody has ever seen?
Wow, I have to really think about that, that nobody has ever seen.
Yeah, I mean they may see the output of it, but they don't actually know what you did.
Overcoming the fear of being on stage.
Ooh, wow, that's a big one considering what you do. That's
Oh
amazing.
man. Yeah.
If you could invite any three people tonight to dinner, who would they be?
I just stick with family.
Really?
Yeah.
No, nobody you want to have dinner with.
I really, yeah, I just value my family a lot. It would be family and friends
That's amazing.
over anybody else, anytime.
I have three, and not and only one of them involves family. But yeah, interesting.
I always think my parents have counted days and counted holidays, and any opportunity I'll take.
You're gonna help me fulfill a dream of mine. I want to walk onto stage with Smoke and my favorite soundtrack one day, and I have not had a chance to do that. And I have a feeling that you and I are gonna have an opportunity to do that together.
Let's do it.
If you had a recurring background song with Smoke and Fog to walk out onto the stage, what is that song?
This girl is on fire.
Ooh, all right. Last question. What's the most ridiculous piece of advice you've ever heard in business?
There's a lot fighting right now. The fight for the first step. The most ridiculous one is just put some money in ads. I mean, that's ultra specific, but yeah.
Can I tell you the most ridiculous piece of advice I have ever heard?
Yes, please.
I was at a leadership coaches conference about a year ago, and there was a coach up on stage, and somebody asked him a really what I thought was a pretty interesting question. Felt like he should have been able to answer it without any wrinkles or anything, what's hesitation. And he paused, guffed, and gawed and said, I'm going to have to get back to you after I consult my chat GPT agent.
It's the ChatGPT coaches era. Didn't you know?
Bro, I was like, bro, you were a featured speaker here, and he asked you a pretty interesting question that I thought was pretty interrogative, and that was his response. And I was just like, how are you here? Sorry, that's very judgmental. Forgive me, universe. Don't give me bad karma. I just remember thinking, what the fuck? Anyway, all right, cool.
Deevo,
Uh,
I want to ask you one question because
I'm
I'm
ready.
actually genuinely very curious. If you were to lose everything today and start over, what would be one thing that you would invest in to support you in growing business again?
What would I invest in?
Yeah.
A coach.
Like business coach, personal coach, what kind of coach?
No, somebody who runs the gamut, more holistic. somebody who
Mm.
has somebody who has practical experience, who has built businesses, who understands the subtleties and nuances of that, but somebody who has also faced tragedy and has been through the ringers of life and understand what it's like to have the ups and downs and be able to have been able to navigate their way through that. And somebody who understands that we are, I believe this deeply to my core, that we are a community of people. We are not meant to be operating in silos. So someone who understands that, but also most importantly understands that the work that matters most is the holistic functional work we do on ourselves, and how do we solve our own complexities so that we can come out a little bit brighter, a little bit better, and as you said, the better version of ourselves. So yeah, it would be a very functional, holistic coach, 100%.
That's amazing. It tells me a lot about your core values.
Yeah. How about you?
For me, it would be some version of a group coaching program. I thrive in a community.
Mm,
A connection, community, people is my thing. It definitely would be a coach with an experience, right, of where I want to go.
mm,
And yeah, I would want that personal development component in there. Like
hmm.
someone who's like both business and personal there.
My current coach that I hired, I manifested him. True story. I manifested him. I wrote down, and I don't care if it was a man or a woman. I was just looking for somebody with very specific, and I sort of just described that person, someone who had been an entrepreneur, someone who had worked and been in the trenches, someone who had failure in some way, shape, or form, many failures, somebody who had been through divorce, all the different things, someone who understands what life is about. And I was looking for somebody that was a little bit older than me, that sort of could also serve as a mentor for me. And true
Mhm.
story, and it happened in the most roundabout way. I wrote this about a year ago. I got invited to a retreat last October, and I went to this retreat. And at this retreat, they gave me a list. It was a really cool. It's called Baby Bathwater Retreats. This is my
Oh,
plug.
yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
about
so
it.
so I've been to their events. I highly recommend them. If you're interested, you would love them. Good people. The guy who runs it, his name is Hollis. He's just a really cool guy. He's built this fantastic platform for 6, 7, 8, 9 figure entrepreneurs to come together and basically party and commune and hang out and really just build connections with each other. It's really cool. And so anyway, I went to this event and they gave me a list. I didn't know that I had this list because I never saw the envelope, but they had given me this list of these are the 5 people that you should meet while you're here. Come find us and we'll connect you with them. And I never got that list until I got home and I was unpacking my bag and I pull out the envelope and I was like, I never saw that. I mean, I do a pretty good job working places, so
Oh
like working the
man.
room. So I made a lot of connections myself, but I never met these 5 people. So I emailed Hollis and I was like, dude, there were 5 people on this list. I just got it. Can you just do an email introduction for me? And he did. And he put me in touch with my current coach, who we kind of talked back and forth. He lives in Spain now. And anyway, so I recently started working with him about 6 months ago, 3 months ago now, I guess. Yeah. And just came, and he's literally to a T everything that I had written down that I was looking for in my next coach. Because I've had many coaches and all of them have had great value to my life. But you sort of outgrow coaches at some point. So it's like
Yeah,
I need the next level now. So yeah, so that's a really cool story about that, isn't it? It's just amazing.
amazing. Shout
Yeah.
out to your coach.
Shout out to Bathwater. Shout out to my coach. Yeah, just everything. So anyhow, well, I have enjoyed this conversation and I've run out of time, and I'm sure you have as well. Let's please stay connected.
Let's do it.
I will have my team follow up with you and just give you all the 411 on the podcast and whatnot. But I've really enjoyed this conversation. I love your energy. It's cool energy coming across the interwebs right now. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And let's talk about that smoke and fire and stage.
I love it. I'm not joking about that.
I'm serious too.
I've always wanted to do it. I even have a smoke machine. I practice at night. I'm just joking.
Nice.
Those are my visualization
It
techniques.
should be in the morning when you get up and you're like enter the stage of the day.
No, because the lighting's better at night because I can control it.
True, true.
Cue the music. Here comes Deevo. Boom. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon.